Welcome, everyone. This is the Cascadia Regional Call. This happens fortnightly on Fridays from 10:30 to noon. And it's a space for us to share collective wisdom, to do some practice sessions, to recap on the learning journey happening in the design school for Regenerating Earth, and to also give announcements about things that are happening throughout the bioregion so we can keep connecting to each other and keep our organizing tight and healthful and wonderful. So our agenda for today is we're going to do a bit of a grounding exercise, which I'll lead us in. We'll do a quick webinar recap with some invitation to offer any reflections that you would like about what you've been learning, what you've been understanding. And then we're going to pass it over to and then we'll do some group announcements. So if there's anything you'd like to share about some organizing your group is doing, or just information about events that you would like to share with the group, you're welcome to do that. And then I will pass it over to Brandon, Claire, and Taya to give us a little presentation about the relationships and supports available through Regenerate Cascadia. And then we're going to have some flexibility. We might do breakout groups if there's time, but we're going to give a lot of spaciousness to question and answer time for Brandon, Claire, and Tia while we have all three of them here. And if we have time to go into breakout groups, we'll do that. And then we will do an artistic closeout. I believe Denise had a poem for us. Denise, does that still feel good for you? Okay, lovely. Very excited to hear that at the end. And as ever, you're welcome to email me at learningjourney@regeneratecascadia.org if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see in this space. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and start our grounding exercise. So if you want to find your feet on the floor, maybe flutter your eyes closed or soften your gaze. And start taking some deeper breaths. Feeling your lungs contract and expand at their own pace. Knowing that there's nothing else you have to do right now. And feeling into the sensation of your feet. Just checking in with how they feel, not trying to change anything, just noticing. Moving up into your ankles, to your calves, your knees, and your thighs, your hips, your belly, diaphragm, and chest, shoulders, upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and fingers. Inviting your awareness up into your neck, your jaw, to your forehead, and your scalp. And then inviting your awareness into whatever feels like the center of your body today. And holding all of your awareness there in as small and tight of a ball as you can manage. Just holding it there, holding it there, holding it there. And then allowing that ball of awareness to expand outward toward the surface of your skin in every direction. Allowing for your nerves to wake up, your skin to wake up. Feel the sensations of your clothing against your skin, the air against your skin. Feeling your edges. And returning your awareness to your breath. And in your mind, you can count backward from 15. And when you get to 0, you can come back into the group space. Oh, welcome, everybody. Thank you for doing that with me. So I'm going to go ahead and move into a little bit of a recap of the recent webinar content. And while I'm doing this, if you'd like to raise your Zoom hand, if you have reflections about what's been coming up for you, about the recent webinar content on bioregional imagination and returning to that. So something that really stuck with me as I watched that recording was, is the forest dreaming of me, or am I dreaming of the forest? And I really came to the conclusion that it is both. We are both co-creating each other and being really present in that space. And so being mindful about the ways we're entering into that relationship and thinking about how are we creating a bias toward life, and everyone's biased. We all have biases. And so how are we adjusting that bias in a healthy pattern, in a healthy relationship with everything? And how are we moving into spaces with observation without imposing our own belief system, imposing our own pattern, and letting the land speak to us and show us the pattern that is already in existence, and which ways can we tend in those landscapes and in those organizing patterns that already work with what is there, and really help to steward it and not impose our own ego too readily. And thinking about weaving our shared capacities and strategies for the territory and creating learning ecosystems, funding ecosystems. I know a lot of people probably in this room attended the BioFi conference, which is, I know, very alive and in the air right now. Lots of beautiful connections. I've seen lots of hands. So yeah, being present with that space and with everything that's coming out of that in terms of all of the connections and the weaving and the relationships that are being tended as a result of all those things. And then to bring in about the human ability to feel separation from the landscape, which creates that insatiable hunger. I think Joe used the word what to go, and I've heard it when to go as well. And just like thinking about that insatiable greed, insatiable hunger, and when we recognize that sensation where we just don't ever feel satisfied, like how is that an indication that we're feeling separation from the landscape, and how can we move back into relationship in a way that is nourishing and satisfying to us? So I really appreciated that was coming in to the webinar, and just in general working toward creating systems and patterns that are reducing fragmentation and creating those fractal identities and relationships as we go. And as I was thinking about it, there's something that comes up at the end of Richard Schwartz's book, No Bad Parts, where he talks about at some point you hit a critical mass where healing becomes spontaneous, where it's easeful, where you just happens. It just starts to become alive, and it happens just by being a settled nervous system among other nervous systems. And so I really think about that in terms of bioregionalism. How do we bring that sensation, that spontaneous healing to all of our spaces, knowing that there are so many people doing this work? So that's my little recap of the most recent webinar content. And I'd invite anyone to raise their Zoom hand and offer any reflections to add to that if they feel so inspired. I'll give a few minutes for that. Claire, did you have a hand up earlier? Did you want to say something?
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge all of the people that I got to see and meet, and the connecting that happened at the really alive conference. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. And if there's any reflections from BioFi, I'm also willing to have some of that come into this space. We have a few minutes for just general reflections of what's going on.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. For those of us that didn't make it, I'd love to be hearing more about how that went.
Yeah. So let's go over.
I've been thinking a lot about how humans have changed the landscape, and that we can do that again. And that kind of gives me hope. It's like seeing the destruction, and it actually reminded me of our last call And we were talking about, what brings us to this work, or, what really touches our soul. And I reflected on, there was a video that James Rasmussen, he's a member of the Duwamish tribe, he had created a video, and he was standing there, and in the background was the Duwamish waterway now, because they changed it so much they don't even call it a river here. And it's a super fun site, and so it's really industrial in the back. And he was saying, you know, the apocalypse already happened for us, and so this whole collapse is not new. And it was watching that video that I just it was a real turning point for me, and wanting to be more involved with the land through this video that I watched. And I was going to tell that story to this group, but the emotion came up for me so much that I ended up instead like, look at these cool flags I made. and and I thought about that later. I like literally bypassed where I had written the notes of James's name and the video, just so that I would remember, and to pick up the flag and show it, because the grief was so uncomfortable. And it kind of got everybody off track, because we were having a deep conversation, and I sort of disrupted that with my look at the flags. And I want to kind of apologize. And I also want to name that, because I don't want to do that. Like, I want to stay in the difficulty. I want to stay in the grief if that's where we have to go. And so if you see me do that, which I might do, um, kind of gently call me on it, because I'm trying to do better. And I need everybody to help me. So I love this circle. I love the conference was amazing. I told a friend it was like my solar batteries are recharging in the rain. And it was raining, and it was like, it was magical. And I want to help move that magic as much as that's what I'm here for. That's why I exist. So again, call me on it if you see me do it. Maybe not, I don't know, however it makes sense, and I will hear you, and I will be listening for that. So thank you.
Thanks, Denise. And honestly, you were a bright spark of light last call, so it was beautiful. I enjoyed seeing the flags, so yes, thank you. But also thank you for creating some learning for yourself and for others. Like, that's a beautiful way to demonstrate continuing to work with the complexity and depth of all of this. So thank you. Yeah, any other people who want to offer a little bit of reflection on the recent webinars or the BioFi conference? We just have a couple more minutes if we want to do reflections. Go for it, Colin.
Hey everyone, I might be a new face to many of you here. My name's Colin, live on Salt Spring Island, and I was down in Seattle for the recent conference. There was 6 of us that road trip down from Canada, and we're all friends up here, and we've all been circling in kind of the regen space, um, technology space. There's podcasting, like within our group, there's been this like synergy of like, oh, you're one of the people. We're gonna work together. Okay, let's go down to this conference. Let's be this like little tribe that came down, and it was the perfect mix of people, and we landed in there, and we were just absolutely blown away. Um, I'll say that collectively on behalf of all of us. Um, some of us already work together, and there was just this like synergy of like we are absolutely in the right place at the right time, and we could just see like how many people have been working toward the solutions from so many different angles and different components and aspects of what is needed for like systemic shift and being the first responders to our ecological and social crisis that we're in. Um, Yeah, the energy was just amazing. The presentations, I mean, Sunday morning felt just like wow, okay, it's time. Like everyone's showing up. Like here we are. It's like now is the time to press play and really weave and work together. Um, within our own, we made so many connections collectively and like had all of these people and we jammed for hours upon hours on our like afterwards and on our drive home. We also all stayed in like a collective Airbnb. There was like 14 people. So like the conversations never stopped. And it felt like all of us got to be brought up to speed in our own ways. There was pockets of just like really absorbing it. And we recorded like hours of us speaking and then took transcript of it and then synthesized that into like action steps. Just for our own landing and like, okay, what are we seeing? And I just got this was a last minute notice that I knew about this call here. And Claire was like, come join in, like, get an update of what's been happening. Like I've had the Regenerate Cascadia in my field for a while, but I haven't stepped forward and actually joined and connected with the rest of you as a group. But I've been in it in my own ways. I'm a longtime land steward and food grower and, natural building. I wear many different hats. Um, and yeah, just like so excited to dive in and be like, yeah, there's more of us just showing up. Like we're here for it. Like let's do this together. And I think that was so much of the sentiment from that whole event was just so uplifting, even though it was so cold and raining outside. The warmth was coming from, yeah, within the inspiration. And yeah, just so grateful to be yeah, showing myself here and just up for it and willing to, yeah, just see more collaboration and synergy and learn more about what's been happening also on specifically on the Regen Cascadia side and what everyone's been coming up with.
Awesome. Thank you. Happy to have you here, Colin. And moving over to Mish.
You are muted.
Sorry about that. I don't want to be Debbie Downer about anything, but they're logging our drainage right now, and they did last summer too. And every day there's logging trucks coming down our road, and I hear them going by with our forest that's like 3 miles up the road. And it is kind of like this daily heartbreaking situation that's happening here. And I just wanted to share it because I'm feeling it and to be able to share with people that care about the forest. And I don't know, I just felt like that's what I wanted to share. Maybe just hold forest here on Libby Creek and Smith Canyon and Chickaman Canyon, as cherished. And it's for me, it's like, I guess this is going to be my regenerative work is what's coming up for me. Because when you see what they're doing to it, it's just so destructive that anyway, I just wanted to presence the forest here. So that's all I have to share this morning.
Thank you for bringing that in, Mish. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's really important to pull on the grief as well as the celebration. So appreciate you for carrying that thread. And we'll pass it over to Corey.
Yeah, I wanted to, so Mish, with you. And three things about the BioFi conference, which was really just so fantastic. I have three things. First of all, as you may or may not know, over the last year, I've helped the Regenerate Cascadia team just with updates and getting some blog posts up. So I've heard over the year the incredible number of meetings and travel that especially Brandon and Claire and then others as the team formed, but just all over Cascadia, meeting and traveling and building relationships. And I didn't know any of these people, so I'm scrambling online to try to learn what who they were and things like that. And I could just see in that conference the deep partnerships that that conference was built on. So it felt very real and deep, and I think had a lot of, and I believe it has just a lot of integrity and traction. So just a shout out, especially to Brandon and Claire and relationship building, and the sacrifices that you've made for that. Second, and really importantly, I've been in some kind of activist circles almost, my whole life. And this is the first place that it feels like there are real connections with Indigenous people that aren't just about speaking, but actually trying to center them, to center Indigenous knowledge, to center the people here who are here now and partnering with them. And so that also feels real, which is really important to me because it's really hard to do. So just want to lift that up as well. And then the venue itself was just so perfect for this conference. This, 100-year-old industrial building that had all the machines, and you couldn't go places because it wasn't safe. It was fucking cold. It's like, yeah, prepare yourselves. Get out of your comfort. So anyway, there's so much more to say, but I wanted to lift those 3 things up.
Thank you, Corey. So glad that you were able to be there. And before we go over to Lauren, I am going to just start gently transitioning us toward any group updates that you'd like to bring in. So any events you have coming up, any things you'd like to share about, any organizational movement happening for you and your landscape teams. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand in the next few minutes if you would like to share something about that. And then over to, is it Lauren or Lauren?
Lauren, thanks.
Okay.
And is it Andra or Andra?
It's Andra.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to really briefly introduce myself. My name is Lauren Reinelt, and I did go to the BioFi conference as well, and was recruited to it by my sister actually, and she told me about it, and so I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed it too. I met about half a dozen of you, in more of a deeper conversation, I guess, and really looking forward to getting involved with this. And I want to thank Chloe for suggesting that I perhaps join this group, and Andra for being very welcoming too. So just glad to kind of be finding out more about this effort. I recently retired, and I'm co-chair of the board for a brand new land trust in the Puyallup watershed, in the kind of Mount Rainier, Tacoma area. And so I'm glad to be involved. And I've been working in the water resources and salmon recovery and watershed management arena for 35 years.
Amazing.
Thank
Really
you.
happy to have you, Lauren. Thank you. And thank you for bringing your wisdom and experience. Definitely needed. Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, shifting into organizing group updates and events that are coming in. So feel free, you can raise your hand or you can throw a link in the chat if that makes sense. And yeah, in the meantime, I'll just talk a little bit about the group that I'm in. So I'm in Regenerate Northern Willamette Valley. We're collaborating with Southern Willamette Valley to do an eco-regional listening tour, which is happening September 4th through 17th. That's been really exciting. We've gotten a lot of groups who are really excited to be tour stops, who are happy to have some volunteer labor and to give tours. There's the Muslim Education Trust, which has a big plot of land, has offered to do a Friday prayer and give lunch to all of the people who come in. And so that's been a really exciting development. We're also working with the iTech Center here in Portland at PSU as the Indigenous Traditional Ecological and Cultural Knowledge Center. And they are recreating sort of a savanna space on their land. So that's really, really exciting to have them involved in this work. And then the Southern and Northern Willamette Valley groups are meeting in early June to do some visioning about what we want to take shape after the tour and how we want to be in relationship with Regenerate Cascadia and all of these big questions that are in the field right now. And then we also have a land tending event at Stevens Creek for anyone in the Northern Willamette Valley area. That's happening June 1st at 10 to 12:30. And it'll be really exciting because as you may have heard when we first came on, we just found Pacific 9 bark in the land area, and maybe we'll be propagating that, and also found some wild roses that we will be tending. So yeah, lots of movement in the Willamette Valleys. And yeah, curious if anyone else wants to share anything about the groups that they're organizing with and any movement, maybe post BioFi that's happening. David, over to you.
Yeah. Was very excited to attend the BioFi conference along with many of you. So thanks to all that organized that and put that together and all the participants. As far as our local Regenerate Whatcom group, I've written an article for the local paper, one of the local environmental papers that will be distributed, I think, early next week, about our group and about the movement in general. We have finally scheduled, when we had our first, well, no, it wasn't our first meeting, but we're starting to have regular meetings now, and we've scheduled them for our initiating team. So that includes myself and Corey Seven and David Ketter and Brian Kirkfleet, all on this call. So we're starting to do that more regularly. And we had a meeting yesterday online with 8 of us in regards to early stages of discussing a project related to water adjudication here in Whatcom County. And so we're looking into that as a potential event or series of events on the land at a specific location, the river farm, to see how they're dealing with water issues, and looking at, how can we educate our community about the bigger role of water in our water catchment area. Brian was talking about that we should maybe be thinking more about water catchment than watershed, because we want to catch and store and use the water that's available to us.
Thank you, David. Oh,
yeah.
If you want to keep going, you're welcome to. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you. I appreciate you bringing that in. And yeah, that was Whatcom. And yeah, if you could share your location as you speak to, I know you said Whatcom, but I just want to present that again. Yeah, and over to you.
It cut off right there, but I hope you were passing to me. And Dave, thanks for coming up. It was so good to meet you in person. And sorry, I was a little rushed, but it was so many of you I finally got to see in person. So that was fantastic. I have an update from a little bit before the conference, but we're super excited to find out more next week. But David Haskell and I met, I don't know, some point last week. Maybe it was a week. I don't know. It's all a blur. With Fritz Hull and Nicholas at the Center for Knowing Home at the Whidbey Institute, and had a really fantastic conversation around just what they're working on establishing there with Novo support. And evidently they might want them to build another building up there in the woods for some other educational purposes. But it was just a very alive conversation about sort of the overlapping mycelial weave between what they're doing and what we're doing with the bioregion stuff, and working to get the Whidbey group instantiated. And then we sent out an email to like 150 people on the Regenerate Whidbey list, and we've got, I think, 4 or 5 people that have raised their hands to step in as steward roles that want to learn more and get involved. So it's happening. And this next week there'll be a prospectus that's been revised coming from the Center for Knowing Home that it's been teased to us, but I don't know really what's in it. But to learn more about exactly what their plans are, in a couple of weeks I should have another update on just like how the weave is going to emerge going forward. But it was super exciting. Also at that meeting with Fritz and Nicholas and David was Tom Buxton, who many of you might have met because he was there both Saturday and Sunday from Whidbey. So, and we had two Holly and Jesse from the Whidbey Community Fund, I think. Might be messing that up, but it was nice to have, a good contingent from Whidbey Island there at the conference. So that's all in flow and in motion and really exciting.
That is super exciting. Thank you so much, Jeff. And I'm gonna pass it over to Brandon.
Yeah, and firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who was there. It was a really magical weekend, and I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces and everywhere and all the magic that you all brought and stepped into. And this week has been fun because I've just been on like, I don't even know if it's called a endorphin hangover or what that is, but I've just been ignoring my Google Calendar and just been just like blah, and then it's wonderful. And then all I was going to shout out to is I think, obviously with the groups and stuff, yeah, I'm really excited to explore here on Vashon, locally helping get up our Regenerate group as it's ready, and then coming in service to also helping Seattle group form at some point. But then I also just wanted to say, I think my favorite part about the weekend was just getting to connect. I'm so excited. Like there's so many more, like the elders panel and the poets. I just wanted to give a call out for coming in and to being able to bring what they're bringing. And they have so much more to offer, and they're like such fucking amazing people. So I'm really excited to do that. And then I want to give a shout out to Paul Nelson, because for the first time, I haven't had it in my hands yet, but I've got this, where is it? The Cascadia Zen book. Okay, it's going to be blurred out, so never mind. There it is. But this book is awesome. And so I'm like talking with Paul about partnering for more poetry events and including this in like membership bundles and stuff. And it's just so good. So I just want to bring in that component too of like community art, the poetry, the music. Oh my God. And then also being able to have, it was really interesting. I think a lot of people were talking about with like Joel there with the crowdsourced choir and Paul Choke and Wagner, but this idea that, we've relegated music and song to like basically to like, church service or something. And so we never sing together. And so anyways, I'm all over the place. It was a wonderful weekend. It was great to see everybody, and I'm just very happy and excited to see what's coming. Excited that everybody else had that time too. So, okay, bye.
So thanks, Brandon. And moving over to Denise.
I work with Community Land Trust here in Burien, Washington, Burien, Seattle, and we got our land use permit on Monday. And so it's been a long journey. We started by listening to the community for about 2 years, and then we worked on getting the zoning changed, and we were able to do that. And so, oh my gosh, so the land use, and then not this weekend, but next weekend, we're having a community convening that we're co-hosting with a group called Burien Collaborative, which is a BIPOC woman-led social service organizations, and they're hosting it at their space, and we are co-hosting it with them. And that has surprisingly actually brought up some pretty intense local politics. And so that is something that I'm navigating right now. It's like, oh, it's not just about development, it's about all kinds of things. But I'm, the land use permit was just huge. And so Lauren and anybody else that is interested in working on, land trust, community ownership of land, I have been collecting resources for about 9 years now and have some pretty good ones. And always willing to learn more, but always really, it's about sharing, because the more we can build this movement of community ownership of land, the better off we all will be, and everyone coming after us, and all the animals and birds too. So celebrating. Thank you.
That's so exciting. That's such big news. What an amazing project. Congratulations. And passing it over to Heather.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a quick update on behalf of Fraser Lowland. This Sunday, the 25th, we're having our first official gathering together as a group. It's going to be a little handful of us, I think, but very excited about it. Me and Daniel have been working on it together with a couple other people, and we're going to meet at a local park on the side of the Fraser River. and get grounded into the area and explore together and do some story sharing and then hopefully share a meal together as well. So we're looking forward to that to kind of launch things. And that'll be the first of many more to come, I'm sure, as we get more woven into the area. And also Daniel is working on a website for Fraser Lowland. So that's exciting too. And that's the update for now. But yeah, we're very happy about it, how everything's kind of ticking along.
Awesome. Yeah, really, really inspiring how much is coming out of there. So really excited to see how that shakes out. And Claire, over to you.
Yeah, just really briefly, I just wanted to make sure that this was in there too, because I feel like it's kind of the heart of what makes a community tick. Is I just wanted to call out some of the people that were on the screen. I don't think Grace is here anymore, but a number of people stepped up, just kind of, there were holes in gaps in the what was needed.
Grace
And
is still here.
oh, great. Yeah, Grace, Jeff, Corey, who else? Oh, Denise. Oh my God, I'm sorry if I've missed some of you, but it was amazing. There were so many people that just stepped in to pick up all kinds of things. And that's when you know that a community is just, there's just so much care, and we felt held by friends that were just stepping in when it was needed. So yeah, I just didn't want to neglect that, because that to me was sometimes that's not what people see, but that to me is what actually infused the entire event. So much gratitude.
Thanks for bringing that in, Claire. I'm really happy to hear that there was a lot of support. So thank you. Amazing. And so, yeah, we will shift into our collective learning session. So I've been sharing a little sociocratic gesture every time. So we did up twinkles, I think the first time, and we've done direct response. So that's moving your hands like this if you want to directly respond to something someone just said. And then bringing in this time, wrap it up. And that's just kind of a little cue for like, hey, we need to keep the meeting going. You can finish with that, but just, it's time to move on. And it's just a gentle nonverbal way to give that cue. And I think Daniel also offered the objection was a palm out, because it's a gift. Objections are a gift. So those are a little recap of our sociocratic gestures, and this new one just wrap it up. So I'll keep doing those, because I think the nonverbal ways to communicate are really fun, especially over Zoom and in meeting spaces, and giving people multiple ways to participate is really important. So with that, we will, oh, Claire, did you have something?
I just wanted to add the gesture we were taught by the Duwamish at the conference, which is gratitude. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks for pulling that in. Great. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Brandon, Claire, and Taya from Regenerate Cascadia, and they're going to give a little presentation about the support structures and relationships available through Regenerate Cascadia.
Thank you so much, Andra. And thank you to everyone here for welcoming us into this space. There are many familiar faces, people we've just freshly met, names that I've seen in Regenerate Cascadia documents making helpful comments for a long time, people I've seen on emails that I now have a face to, and then new faces and new symbols and new names that I'm meeting for the first time. So thanks for having us in this space. Just want to set a little bit of an expectation for what's happening now. You're probably all aware that there's quite a bit of complexity in landscape regeneration, in bioregional organizing, in bioregional finance. And so we're learning how to work with that in the most resonant way. And so what we're about to step into is being slow and methodical and thorough about giving out a certain level of information about the first phase that is the most relevant to us, and really trying to hold our attention there and get that shared understanding, and then holding back other areas of complexity that we know we'll be coming to. And so we're going to be walking you through a presentation, and it's going to be, there's some context setting around Regenerate Cascadia, the broader overview of our programs, but we're going to be diving into a really particular first opportunity and call to action, and making sure that we have that really clearly articulated. All the information we're sharing here today will be coming out to you on the website, in document form, in an application process. We'll probably send the slides. And so we're going to have certain periods where we'll pause for questions and reflections. And so we ask, in terms of questions as we're going through, perhaps just take notes if we're moving through slides. When we open for questions at particular periods, please go ahead and dump any and all of them into the chat, as well as raising your hands. And then it's possible that one of us will be able to speak to 3 or 4 questions at the same time. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of scoping. I'm going to start sharing my screen. There'll be a bit of an introduction from each of us so that we have all of our voices in the space. And let's get this show on the road. So let me just get everything set up. Can everyone see these slides? All right, great. I'm going to reduce faces so that I can see them too. So, as I said, we're introducing today our first phase of support for groups undertaking landscape regeneration. And, oops, it's not working when I click to change the slide. Oh, that works. So we thought we'd let you know just briefly the origin story about how the 3 of us met, because we are core team members in Regenerate Cascadia, along with some other people on the call. So Claire, I might invite you to share a part of that story.
Yeah, so this is just for, as Taya said, many of you who haven't heard this, is that the 3 of us met at the Edge Prize, which was a bioregional accelerator, and Taya was one of the facilitators. And it was during that time that Brandon and I both had come in with separate projects, and we both realized that we held parts of something that could actually expand our own vision of what we were wanting to bring, and realized that that collaboration sort of the was the essence of what Regenerate Cascadia stands for. So that's where we formed Regenerate Cascadia.
And Brandon, did you want to add anything into that about the progression or how we're working now? Or
I would just add, keeping this short, but it was very fun. So we met I gave a bioregional mapping workshop as part of the Salmon Nation Edge Prize. It was one of their first workshops. And that is actually where the 3 of us met. So just to bring things full circle. And then I'm also just going to name how lucky we are to have Taya on this call. Taya is kind of our hidden secret 3rd member, because Taya normally lives in Australia, and just the way that the time zones work isn't usually available until the afternoon. And we're very lucky to have Taya, who joined us in person for the for the BioFi conference, and then stayed the week before and the week after, so we could do some strategic planning, and is still stateside. And that's really wonderful now that we actually get to have the 3 of us here able to share and present this.
thanks. So Claire, I might give you time to share a brief intro.
Yeah, just well, I think there's some pictures of me, but yeah, I think what I would love to say is just how much I feel that we each bring our strengths and complement each other in ways that that make me feel like I feel very energized and alive by the collaboration. So yeah. So yeah, and I'm also a community artist, and have always looked at regeneration being way more than just the arts, and that the arts were a really important part of how we see each other and how we understand ourselves. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Oh, Brandon, what happened to yours? I can't go backwards. Oh, okay. Brandon's is not here anymore, or it might come later. So I'll just do it. As I said, I live in Australia, and although I was born in North America and I spent 2 years growing up from 3 to 5 in a little wood cabin in Spokane. So I've got some Cascadian DNA, but where I feel most at home in my landscape has become very connected to this being called Alice, who's my fur companion. She's in a committed lifelong relationship with me, and we have a lot of fun together exploring nature. She has quite a bit of emotional depth and range, and as you can see here, she's needing to hold hands, which is something we do a lot. And her biomimicry skills are also very advanced. You can see here it's almost indefinable whether she is in fact also a pot plant as well. So I thought I'd share a little bit of the magic of the animal world as a way of introducing myself. And Brandon, okay, we're going to jump right in. So just a couple of like 2 key ways to consider Regenerate Cascadia as a bioregional movement and a capacity building program of the Department of Bioregion, dedicated to a long-term bioregional regeneration vision for Cascadia. And that of course includes Canada and the US. And so the next step to that is that we're looking at a framework to flow money to landscapes through, in the short term, which we'll be talking about today, extending certain Department of Bioregion 501c3 services to regeneration groups, as a very immediate way to start to get different smaller amounts of funding into landscape groups. And then over the medium term, looking at the vision of administering a Cascadia Regeneration Fund. Oh, here he is. Here's Brandon's slides. Did you want to say anything, Brandon, further, or?
Just go ahead.
Okay. And so there's lots of things, but what we're going to highlight today in terms of what we're grounded in terms of that vision and framework, is communities stepping into sovereignty as stewards of their place, the landscapes they call home, in order to self-organize for landscape resilience. And part of that self-organizing includes inclusive stewardship, representation, and consent at all levels. And so you could summarize by saying, we're committed to designing an ecosystem approach that enables agency and diverse approaches across the entire bioregion. And so the how, we've spent a lot of time thinking and dreaming and visioning and dealing with complexity, and we've come up with 2 core programs for 2025 and 2026, and you'll be learning more about these in the coming weeks. The first one is called Cascadia Bioregion, and that's our bioregional regeneration program. This is about forming seed groups, landscape groups, and landscape hubs to undertake bioregional mapping, develop portfolio-based regeneration strategies, and strengthen core capacities for deep place-based organizing. We're going to be introducing today what these 3 groupings mean. And over here we have Cascadia BioFi, which is the bioregional finance program that goes with Bioregion, helping to develop local, regional, and bioregional funding ecosystems to support the work that the groups and hubs are prioritizing in their landscapes. So when we think about water and rivers and watersheds, we know that we see small tributaries gradually merging with each other. Imagine each of these 2 programs, the Bioregion and BioFi programs, as small tributaries. Each one will kick off in 2025 over the next 6 months with small formative phases. And during 2026, the vision is for these tributaries to join each other as one river. Oops, I can't go backwards. Oh, yes, I can. And I wanted to highlight this beautiful hand-drawn image from Lisa Bade, who's been working with the Regenerate Cascadia team for a long time. You can really think of these 2 programs, Bioregion and Biofinance, as these 2 hands, where we see an image of holding the landscape with care and balance. And there's a reciprocity here. One program is flowing and nourishing the other. And in that way, we can move forward in how we hold our beloved bioregion and regenerate in a sustainable way over the future. So just a couple of the guiding, sort of inspiring or visionary questions that sit behind the design and the co-design of the Bioregion program are, how can we come in service to all beings, systems, and cultures that make up the places we call home? We know that this has to be holistic and inclusive. How can our work bring about healing, rematriation, reconciliation, and shared stories of place? There's so many more words we could put into this, but really the core is, how do we know that we're truly transforming systems back to what we know in our bodies and hearts is creating the conditions conducive to life, is in right relationship? And finally, how can we listen to the land deeply enough for it to lead us in a coherent pathway towards the regeneration that it is seeking and asking us for? And so that's a little bit of the background. I might just pause and see if Claire and Brandon want to add anything before we jump into some of the more detailed sections of this sharing.
I think you said it beautifully.
Okay. All right, we'll continue. So we want to introduce you to a concept that we're really excited about. It's called the circles, our circles of commitment, Regenerate Cascadia Circles of Commitment, and it depicts different levels of landscape organizing. And so there are 3 different circles that we've identified. And the first is the seed group level. This is a small local group that's focused on exploration, on learning, early stage collaboration, relationship building, and organizing for landscape regeneration. This is also the place for new and newly formed groups. So for some of you in the learning journey, as you're connecting and finding other people in your area, and you might in September decide you'd like to start a seed group, this is the first circle of commitment in terms of how you might come under and join the Regenerate Cascadia banner and the Bioregional program. The second circle of commitment is called a landscape group. And this is a more established team that meets regularly and has at least 3 designated group stewards, because now there's a lot more detail in terms of what that group is holding and how Regenerate Cascadia might be supporting them. And we'll get into those details momentarily. And finally, this third level is called a landscape hub, which are regional organizing bodies that emerge from our landscape hub cultivator with supported regeneration teams that hold core processes for building and implementing a bioregional regeneration strategy. Lots of words in there. We could spend a whole hour just on that one concept. We want to be clear that this is not the scope of this presentation. The Landscape Hub Cultivator is a year-long program kicking off later in September, and there will be lots of information coming to support groups to decide if they'd like to apply for that process. And also it's an annual process that will keep repeating. So watch that space. But let's get into some of the specifics. So seed groups, applications are opening soon for both seed groups and landscape groups. We're basically going to open the portal now. And so what does it mean to be a seed group? What is Regenerate Cascadia providing to your group? Well, we offer you a group webpage on the Regenerate Cascadia website to help connect with others in the landscape and to give you that visibility. We offer the ability to post events and updates on the website with the help of our wondrous community steward, Andra, and you know what great, how much care and thoroughness Andra brings to stewarding. Membership to the Design School for Regenerating Earth to meet peers and mentors around Cascadia and the planet. And we also offer access to a suite of digital tools and platforms to support landscape organizing. So there's Regenerate Cascadia emails, there's G Drive space for your group to use, there's Miro for drawing and strategy building, and all of that onboarding and the technical platforms are supported by our community steward, Andra. We also we extend the insurance coverage that Department of Bioregion and the Regenerate Cascadia program holds for events that you hold underneath that banner. And you'll see here, this is in a darker blue because this is where we're getting really into the specifics of some of the finance aspects and the extension of the 501c3 nonprofit status is that if you become a seed group and accept the community agreements, etc., you now have the ability to accept up to $12,000 per year in donations through our nonprofit status. So Claire, Brandon, anything to add before I move to landscape groups? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no.
Maybe I'll just say it's really meant to be meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in the summary slide, Claire. I might invite you to speak a little more on that, because yes. And so landscape groups, again, applications are opening for either of those. And so why we're doing that, this is not a linear approach. We want groups to be deciding and defining which group suits their purpose at this time for their own reasons. And so landscape groups have the same things, the group webpage, ability to post events and updates. They have access to digital tools. They have some more tools coming along like Adobe Suite and a few others. Also the insurance coverage for events. And here, again, now we see that there's the ability to accept unlimited yearly donations. using the RC status. It's not capped at 12,000. There's also the ability to apply for and receive grants under the Regenerate Cascadia banner. Capacity building support for grant applications, for the management and reporting processes that grants bring into the field. Our team will be offering that support. So it's not just like, hey, you can go apply for grants now. We're actually going to be there to support you in building those capacities. There's also grant and nonprofit reporting support from our operations assistant. So Ben's actually on the call here today. And finally, payroll services, if applicable. And you might be wondering, well, what do you mean by payroll services? Are we going to be paid by Regenerate Cascadia? And what we mean is that for established landscape groups that are successful in accessing grant funding, and in particular, if they start to be able to do that on an annual basis, they now have a more sustainable amount of funding, which means they can start to consider paying certain core members on the team to hold those roles. And so at that point, as you move into payroll services, we will be helping support you in the legal requirements and the reporting and the processes that go with that.
And so Taya, I just want to say here, so this applies to the American side, the Canadian side, we're in the process
No,
of...
this actually applies for both. So I think it's, while you're working, because I think we should pause that. I think it's going into probably too much detail.
Okay, so yes, you can see there's a lot of complexity that sits behind this, as you all know. And
yeah, I mean, just to be very clear, that works for both sides of the border. And the only thing that you can't do on the Canadian side would be to accept, say, grants or the tax deductible status. So what Claire is naming is that she and a team on the Canadian side are working for Canadian registration, so that there will be an independent charitable nonprofit also on the Canadian side that will be able to handle all of those same reporting and payroll services and insurance services on the Canadian side as well.
Great. And so we want to pause here before we go to the landscape hub cultivator, because there's a deeper level of reciprocal commitment when if a group chooses to apply and identify as a landscape group. So in order for us to be able to provide the insurance coverage, the grant application, the management and reporting services, the payroll services, the nonprofit reporting requirement maintenance to make sure that Department of Bioregion, stays an established vehicle for us to use, Regenerate Cascadia would retain 10% of all donations and grant funds raised by landscape groups under its nonprofit umbrella, because now we are resourcing our team to be able to have a lot more one-to-one and direct contact and capacity building to support with each group. So for the seed group, that first 12,000 in donations, that all goes to you because it's very easy for us. It's light touch. We don't need to do a lot in order to resource that for you. And so now we'll go to the Landscape Hub, just to give you, this is emerging. The Landscape Hubs will begin to emerge out of the year-long Landscape Hub Cultivator I mentioned that's starting in September this year. And so this is a really big leap from the other circles of commitment that I've talked about so far. And this is stepping into a level of bioregional strategizing and committing to bioregional funding ecosystem development and plans. And so it's going to suit some groups and it's not going to suit others. And then maybe at a particular time, a group will be ready. But what a landscape hub would need to be holding is to have a funded regeneration team in place, to actively participate in both local fundraising for their hub and our Cascadia bioregional fundraising strategy. We want to make sure that we are encouraging local funding ecosystems at the same time as developing bioregional funding ecosystems. They need to have developed and now maintain a regenerative project portfolio that then ratchets up into a local regeneration strategy that has an action plan for delivering that strategy and a budget. They need to be participating in developing a bioregional financing facility and funding ecosystem that funds landscape hub project portfolios and regeneration strategies. So you can see why we need a whole year of a cultivator process to get groups up to this stage, because there's a lot that comes in at this level. And also they would be responsible for holding core processes that go with that strategy and that project portfolio, such as monitoring and sustaining watershed scale measurement, reporting and verification, which is absolutely critical for finance flows. Monitoring and sustaining context-based indicators and bioregional carrying capacity for long-term regeneration. These pieces are really important because typically if we look at how nature-based solutions are funded or regeneration is funded, is that we're using like a top-down way of measuring that may not suit the uniqueness of place. And this is where landscape groups and landscape hubs will be able to say, these are the measurements that make sense, and these are the ones that we're stewarding and tracking. So that was a lot. We just want to sort of round out this section in terms of our circles of commitments by really reiterating that we've designed these to hopefully stimulate an ecosystem approach. The last thing we want is to create another institutional layer that dampens down diversity. And so we've really designed these with the notion that diverse groups at various points and with different needs can make different choices. So for example, for seed groups, if you wanted to make the step to landscape group, a key consideration would be, well, are we comfortably receiving $12,000 in donations a year? And do we think we could stretch that quite easily? Well, then it makes sense to make that jump, because of course the decision there is that 10% will now be retained as Regenerate Cascadia begins to offer a lot more support and services. For a landscape group thinking about stepping into a landscape hub, that's a huge change. Are you interested and resourced to commit to a year-long learning and development program? Is coming in service to a larger level of bioregional organizing and strategy what your group wants right now? Or at the level of landscape group, are you now able to develop a local funding ecosystem that really allows you to participate in the projects that are the most meaningful for you? So I think now is a great point for us to stop and open into questions and reflections on this concept of the circles of commitment, and in particular seed groups and landscape groups in the next coming months as a place for people like yourself, y'all, to be considering, do we want to join this process, and at what circle of commitment? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see faces in the chat. Anyone? So when we have silence, it's hard to know, is this landing? Is this like confusing?
There's a question from Daniel. Does this also apply to the non-ecological components of regional regeneration? We're hoping to be active on several stacked layers of regeneration, ranging from ecological to educational, economic, and cultural, or is this more specifically for the ecological component of the work?
Great question. Brandon, Claire?
You want to jump in on that?
Yeah, and I would like you to come back to this, because this is about getting landscapes ready to be able to be like creating the infrastructure to receive the funding, to be able to do all of the great work that needs to be held in the landscape. And so of course, there's lots of work and there are lots of things that are already going on, but it's just it's starting where people are at and building out so that we can start doing that in a really coherent way. And I will just put one other piece in, is a good part of what needs to happen is actually a cultural shift. So it's also embedding some of the governance and the cultural piece, which we haven't really brought in. We've brought in much more the mechanics and the operational side, but there is a lot of that is built into this. But it's a lot to communicate, and so we're trying to figure out a way that we can. And I think, Taya, thank you so much. You have done such a good job of just taking us through just the steps that are there. So it's not to negate the work that's already happening. It's just to start bringing it into some kind of scaffolding that will support that infrastructure.
And I'll just jump in and say it's absolutely all of those things together. So bioregionalism is that, yes, ecological, but then cultural, economic, social. And so really what we're talking about is designing a process where we can create, and what we talk a lot about is interstitial core capacity. It's the weaving of between groups, and it's that these muscles are weak right now. They have not been resourced, they have not been funded or supported. And so we need to see people supported to help start to hold that role. And so this process of the bioregional mapping, the starting to build the portfolio of regenerative projects, that's about identifying who is doing the work in the landscape that needs to be supported. But the regeneration strategy is really about groups coming together, landscapes coming together on that whole system lens to really talk about what does a regenerative future for that area look like 500 years in the past? And then how can we get all of us in that landscape that are doing regenerative work to be a part of that and to really start to think about budgets of how funding would flow if it's coming in. And we need to visualize those pathways. We need to see people connected into it, whether or not they're in that room. And so that's a lot about what we're looking at. And it's a lot about how we'll be doing that together and co-creating that, because it doesn't necessarily exist yet.
So maybe let's go over to Corey for your question.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I'm curious, and Andra, I saw your reply in there, but I'm curious, it seems like even a seed group or a landscape group that doesn't decide right away to go into a hub, that having a strategy that aligns with the landscape and where they are and who is on the team, etc., would be really important to have some coherence. And so just curious, I think I understand like the hub is going to be a lot more hands-on support, but if you're not a hub eventually, is there any support for getting those strategies coherent? Like how you, just as an example here in Skagit, had a few conversations with people who are focused on the food system. And so maybe we would start a little seed group on the food system, but that's just part of it. And so that might help us, get going, but then a larger coherent strategy, how to build those muscles, that I don't know that would happen in the learning journey. Thanks.
So with that, I would just say too, so again, remember, so there's two programs, right? There's the Bioregion program and the Bio5. So the Bioregion is all about how do we create these landscape groups, which are identifying who's doing the work in the landscape. And then our hope is that the Bio5 will later come in and then re-grant that support out into the communities. And so if you have like a food sovereignty seed group that's kind of forming and you've identified these different projects, and that's a way that we're also partnering to support other nonprofits. It's the way that we're supporting other groups in the landscape. It could be a way that we're supporting leaders in the landscape who are holding, maybe they're working 80 hours a week or 40 hours a week doing incredible stuff and they're not being resourced. That is the goal of these local landscape groups, to identify who those people are so that when funding does start to come in, it gets re-granted out and support people in those ways as identified by the people doing it.
I wasn't actually talking about the financial support, but support for strategy.
Yeah.
Will that be there?
Yeah. So the whole idea here is all we're really trying to do is open up Regenerate Cascadia and the support that we're getting, and then to be able to provide it to organizers and groups. So for example, Andrea, I think is a great example of a community steward where right now we're immediately trying to resource their time to support you all, right? And then it's the same thing with Ben is currently hiring a nonprofit program officer who will actually be the touch point and person to support like all of the needs for landscape groups as they're coming on and coming under the umbrella and stuff like that. And so that we're actually helping support and take the lift off of local groups. And that will extend to things like in the future, like maybe it's a grant writer, maybe it's a thing, maybe it's something, but we can be centralizing and collectivizing kind of those services to be able to provide out. And so hopefully in that multi-capital way.
Thank you.
I will also say that there is an aspect of co-learning. So once the seed groups or landscape groups are formed, it's you know, there's a lot of value of just being able to reflect back to others what's happened so far, because then it allows you to then figure out the next steps. And as the different groups are sharing, you start to actually be inspired what the next steps are. Plus, there will be support for that, but it requires starting to get a container for who's holding these processes. So absolutely, it's meant to be creating a rich field of co-learning.
Yeah. And I would like to, so yeah, and Anna, you've had your hand up for a while, so.
And Lauren and Claire. And
Yes, yeah.
we just have 7 minutes left, so we're going to make sure we hear these 3 questions, and then we'll do a bit of a summary.
Am I the next question?
Yes, Anna.
Not clear. I have a question. There's like a lot of different ways my brain is spinning, so I'm going to try and like hone it into one question. But it seems like, because I completely agree with the strategy of like there are all of these different groups doing different aspects of what Regenerating Cascadia actually is, and all these different places in all these different aspects, whether it's like, you know, solidarity economy or, you know, building what Denise was talking about with, you know, ecological co-housing or ecosystem restoration or farming sheep and creating regenerative textile pathways. Like there's so many things that are happening. My question is sort of like, what is the landscape scale, first of all, when we talk about a landscape hub? Because I've seen like Southern Willamette Valley, but there are like projects that are very, very hyper local in the Southern Willamette Valley. And there's also projects that might be like Cascadia wide or even nationwide or continental international that could also be in those spaces. So like how we're working with these different aspects of scale in terms of like who's coming to the table. And my second question is about who is coming to the table. Because I know that there's lots of people on this call who have like other affiliations beyond Regenerate Cascadia, other groups they're working with. In my experience of trying to build networks and federations and like cohesive movement strategy with multiple groups, there is something to be said for like having a point person who gets paid to just facilitate between all the groups, which it seems like is sort of what we're talking about doing here. There's also something to be said for starting with like getting representatives from those groups into the room together. And so I'm just sort of curious how that's getting navigated. Because I especially know that if there's like an institution up here that has funding and there's people who are hired by that institution down here who are floating between all of these other groups, that's not often ideal for building trust and for building a sense of like ownership and trust mainly on the part of the people who maybe are not at the top where the funding is coming through. And I know that this isn't a hierarchical thing. I'm just thinking in terms of like, I've learned a lot of ways how not to build a federation at this point in my life. So I'm really curious, like, yeah, like how those questions are getting navigated. Check.
I might just,
So,
you go, Claire.
yeah, Anna, there are a couple of things I just wanted to say. First of all, when we were doing the activation tour, one of the things that started to actually become clear, because we were looking at like 14 different organizing groups, there were certain patterns of how people were already organizing in their landscapes and where they weren't. And so it's going to be different to every single landscape, what that actually looks like. But they need to be able to organize coherently. And the land dictates that, as well as the patterns of how people have been organizing. So it is emergent, and it is us looking at it. And it's not, this is just the first year of doing this. It's going to evolve over time. And those patterns of what is too big to organize in, but this is for local organizing. So you need to be able to see the landscape at that's the kind of organizing scale. What that looks like is going to emerge. So I would love Brandon to add to that, or Taya, you were going to jump in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to say, from a strategy perspective, we're trying to build sustainable foundations, and what that means is proving out a template. Solidifies, I suppose, let's call it our brand in terms of a movement that's trying to do new things out there. And we're trying to build a funding ecosystem that's top down, bottom up, coming out through the middle. So for instance, the seed groups and landscape groups, that application process opens in a month. it just works for us because it's a time for us to connect in, have some resources, get onto the same website site, be able to show our current funder, hey, look what we've just done. We've got this many groups who are interested in wanting to carry this forward, which then brings our trust level up, and means when we're coming towards a regeneration fund, we've got a little bit more clout, a bit of a stronger voice. At the same time, we're also looking to co-create emerging templates at, say, a Department of Bioregion level that can be taken into a whole nother bioregion, and certainly can be taken globally. But that's not the primary focus right now, as we try and make sure we stay sustainable. And I just wanted to speak to a couple of questions in the chat on that, which is, okay, so we're offering you the ability to get $12,000 in donations, but, how does a newly formed group go out and do that? Are we able to provide any suggestions or support for that? And so someone also asked what were some of the ideas that came out of the conference, and one that Brandon came up with is that we could organize an event like a Zoom session, and you could do some broad outreach, and it's about a micro experimentation in flow funding, and everyone crowdfunds $25 to attend, and we get a pool of 2,000, and through a 2-hour workshop, we walk through the process of how we would decide where to flow that money to within a particular landscape community. And so that's a way to market a group. It's a way to market the projects and the people that are involved in holding that. It's a very low entry ask, but it starts to create a local funding ecosystem where now groups, all the people that attended, might be quite willing to start a donation relationship with that group. So those are the types of ideas in our community of practice that we would be trying to seed out to groups to support, if that makes sense.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I just want to name that we're approaching toward our closeout time, but wanted to make sure that we have these last 2 questions from Claire and Lauren, but if we can keep the questions and answers a little brief. And then I also want to call in that this is not the last time you'll be hearing about this. We'll be having documentations. You're welcome to email me, Brandon, Claire, or Taya, or all of us, and we'll continue answering questions about all of this. And you can also have us schedule a Zoom call with your group, and we can have a lot of questions and conversation about this as well directly with you. So please let us know.
Yeah, and also just that we're only actually halfway through the presentation. So all the things where we went into specifics about all this, we didn't actually get to.
No.
So I'm wondering if it's what?
No, there's just the one slide about the direct program model, but it's fine. This is
and all the comparisons of the breakdown tables,
okay.
and all the charts of like all the specifics of people. So all I'm just saying is like, let's go through these 2 questions at the end of the program. But if people maybe want to stay on a little bit after or something, we could keep the conversation going or do it later.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and go over to Claire for a question.
Just, I want to appreciate what we've been calling a phase-wise development of this model that you're presenting, and then looking locally to our area. Building the capacity to have a fundraising circle. I mean, we were kind of launching from this premise that we felt led on from Joe and folks about, oh, there's all this money out there. You're just going to be flooded with cash. And all of a sudden we have to do all this on the ground, low level, scratching, fundraising, even the flow funding model. It's like, well, wait a minute. I thought that flow was supposed to be coming from Joe's presentation. That flow was supposed to be trickling down from rich people, and you guys are grounding the reality of no, up to you guys once again. You have to do the work and raise the money and do everything. This is not a complaint. This is just reality hitting us in the face. And maybe a question is that a reality check or what?
No, I don't think that's the case. I mean, so I think there's a little bit of a dance here, right? And it's almost a cart and egg situation where it's like, we need to be able to show to people, who we're working with on the ground, and the people on the ground need to be supported by the people that we're working with. And that's the system that we're building in. I just want to name 2, all right? Like we can help right now, we have very limited capacity and support. So that's something that we're trying to build in, grow as fast as we can. But also so seed and landscape groups, largely you are correct, right? Like we can offer the benefits of the nonprofit, like seed groups, but seed groups also aren't meant to have a ton of money and just go out and start spending it, right? Like Seed groups are the place where people might just be learning about what is Cascadia, what is Regenerate Cascadia, what is bioregionalism. They're just learning about this for the first time. They're starting to meet. You're getting a few people in the landscape. And that's great. And we can offer them the benefits to start fundraising or going out there right now. Landscape groups are groups like definitely like what you've been working on in the South Willamette Valley, North Willamette Valley, people who've been in there since the activation tour. You've got your core organizing team, you've got your whatever. And those will be the groups that we're excited to invite into the hub cultivator, where we are going to spend a year and we're going to work as hard as we can to resource these teams. And we cannot guarantee what that looks like. We might go through and come out with nothing. But we think we have a pretty good shot at being able to start to bring in some real financial support. And our idea is that we want to help support the teams through Regenerate Cascadia, through these funders, in connections that we have. And then in the background, we have this BioFi that we're building. And that is the idea of building a bioregional regeneration fund. And that'll be something that we're trying to work on and stand up probably in 2026. But when that starts to get teeth, then that will flow money to these groups. And it will be small amounts to start with. Also with the idea that we have a lot of figuring how to work with money. We're not ready to receive a lot of money. If the fire hose gets turned on, all of that power dynamics and the vacuums and the whatever of who's getting paid, who's not, the privilege of who's in the room, those are things we need to figure out together. And so that hub cultivator is really about us co-creating what that looks like. And we'll spend the first 6 months really getting a lot of that firmed up. And then we'll spend the next 6 months after that about really building in the local funding ecosystems, but also with the idea that we do not want to be dependent on one funding source. We need a diversified flow of funds that if say Novo vanished tomorrow, we cannot have this collapse, and we need to see people supported. And so that's why we're trying to leverage Novo to get more people in the room, but also always with the thought of local funding ecosystems. I think like Whidbey is a really good example of this, of even if Novo is flowing from the top into it, and literally what their goal is how do we make money flow like water? Like if they turn on that fire hose, we need to be ready to receive it. So how are we building in those pathways and those tributaries? But then what's beautiful is we can also be doing that at the local landscape, where if there's a local Whidbey group, for example, we do have these they already have amazing community foundations in the landscape, and they know the people of who to talk to and who to get support from. So we can be inviting them into the conversation to also be helping stabilize, because I think resilience is really something that we're looking at here too. Sorry, Claire, over to you.
I just want to say one quick thing is that this infrastructure does not yet exist, and it does require a level of trusting. But I think as what was demonstrated during the conference is the quality of people and the level of seriousness of the conversations that are happening that we're presenting. You can see how highly developed some of the things that they were presenting are, and we're right in the middle of those conversations. So this stuff is moving forward, and we're not ready. Like, we don't want it to be about the funding. We want it to be about the infrastructure that has the capacity to change the culture that is needed. So anyway, we're being careful about how we're rolling this out. So anyway, it does require a level of trust of what we're building, but I do believe it's going somewhere.
I want to appreciate the capacity to work with all that complexity and thoughtfulness. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to go over to Lauren for our last question, and then we'll have Denise read a poem. And I will send out the slides so that anything we might have missed at the end, I'll send out in an email next week. And then please do email me at learningjourney@regeneratecascadia.org if you'd like to schedule another meeting with your group to talk about this in more depth, or if you just as an individual have more questions, I will make sure that they get forwarded on to Brandon, Claire, and Tia.
Are we gonna go to Lauren?
Yeah, so
Lauren, yeah.
I just wanted to say that at least for one of the groups that I'm involved in, the Puyallup Land Trust, it essentially is like a startup. It's about 8 to 9 months in. We've been talking really in the last couple of months about how do we get a website up and running? How do we receive money prior to getting 501c3 status, which is going to take another 6 to 9 months or whatever, a little bit of an unknown. And so this is certainly one of the options now that I didn't even realize I was coming to hear about. But so it sounds like maybe both the seed group and the landscape group might be appropriate. And I was just wondering about, yeah, who best to connect with going forward. It sounds like maybe there's some potential to stay on a little longer, but also just what the timing might be. And then if both of those involve applications, and whether those applications then are not going to be granted to everyone, only to some that qualify, so to speak. And was just wondering about that.
Lauren, that is wonderful. And what I will say, and we didn't even want to bring it into the conversation because it can get a little bit confusing, but also the person that Ben is hiring to help him as a nonprofit program officer is also because we're going to be launching a fiscal sponsorship program. And so we can also just do either a Model A or Model C type fiscal sponsorship. And that's different from the landscape group too. So you are welcome to do a landscape or a seed group for the Puyallup watershed in that whole area. That would be wonderful. And then two, if your group is just looking for fiscal sponsorship in the interim while you're getting your 501c3 up, that is exactly the services that we hope to help provide as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Is there anyone in particular that I should connect with for more information, or will that just be coming out over the next
follow
month
up with myself, Ben, Claire, or Taya, and I can leave an email address.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm also happy to direct folks if you just use Learning Journey at regeneratecascadia.org. I can forward on to the relevant folks. Okay, I do want to make sure that we have enough time and try to end almost on time here. So let's go ahead and move over to Denise. Thank you so much, Taya, Brandon, and Claire for having your time and all of the effort that I know you put into this project. And more information is coming. I promise I will send the slides out to you all via email next week. And so, yeah, let's go over to Denise, and then I will get you. Oh, and real quick, if you are interested in hosting or in having a poem that you're going to read at the next meeting, which would be on, I believe it's June 6th. Yeah, June 6th is our next call. So if you have a poem or a story that you'd like to bring that you think relates to bioregionalism in some way to close us out, or if you'd like to do a grounding practice, please throw that in the chat. And then we will go ahead and listen to what Denise has brought.
Thank you. Amazing call. And I'm going to read a poem called Salmon by Rod Lewis, who lives in Bellingham. I awoke yearning for salmon, not the kind on a plate, not the bubbling fat, but the living, swimming flame, yearning upstream toward the single sacred origin. A sudden panic. What if that yearning were to leave the world? What if that holy desire were to vanish? What would happen to us? My thoughts came quickly, strangely. I didn't understand. Still half in a dream, part of me was swimming with them. Part of me was them. How could that be? Their tapered intensity, grim-jawed, single-minded, flank by flank, moving through the dark. The river could be space. The river could be a burning city, could be a song sung by a woman to a dying mother, by a girl to a flower, by a man to a mountain. It is the one thing, the center and the circle completing. It is our own breath, warm, wild, of its own accord, mystery driven, holy as night. How do we live? How will we live? It's not what we think. What we think. I wanted to run through the streets. Without the salmon, our blood will forget. Will forget, I swear. They are inside us now. Our rivers breathe a wild intention. The odds are ridiculous. We are swimming against the darkest currents. Only the stars are on our side. Only the children and the rain, the blown seeds and the swelling waves, and the light throwing, life sowing, individual sun.
That was absolutely gorgeous to me. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and take a big breath for that poem and everything shared today.
Thank you all.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you,
all
Andrea,
are
for
great.
This
what you're doing to lead this. Yeah.
Very, very happy to do this. All right, so I will start, sending you off. I'm going to stop the recording, and if you want to stay on for a few extra minutes, I'm here to answer questions. And if Brandon, Claire, or Taya also want to stay on to ask your questions, they're welcome to. Otherwise, have a great day. See ya.